In October of 2007, there is a shooting outside of a apartment complex, and a man is shot. And I just want to say, actually, he was 14 years old. He wasn't a man. He was a kid. He was a baby. Robert Pearson III. He was shot and killed. And this is a bit of a complicated story. You knew Robert Pearson, correct? You guys weren't
Yes,
close, but you knew him, right?
yes,
And this shooting happens, and there are eyewitness accounts and so on. To make a really long story short, a 15-year-old points you out in a lineup, a 15-year-old who you do not know. You don't know who this 15-year-old is, and you're
no,
pointed out in a photographic lineup, I should say, a photographic
yes.
lineup, and your life has changed forever. And I cover this so much. These eyewitness testimonies, they're so weak oftentimes, and we're talking about a 15-year-old. We're talking about a
Right.
minor here. So
That they lent
tell
credence to that. It was unbelievable.
unbelievable. When I was reading the story, I was like, wow, it's so scary how that child saying this, it would impact your life forever. So
Yes.
again, a 15-year-old goes to the police station and says that he witnessed this murder. He says that he saw the murder, and of course, this happens in Flint, Michigan, as I said before. And he had like a piece of paper detailing the description of, I guess, the four gunmen who committed this
Right.
murder. He was shown a photographic lineup, and you were in this lineup for a previous case, nothing to do with this, and you are identified as one of the gunmen. So tell me about your arrest and how you find out that you're identified in this lineup.
As said, I was a kid at Southwestern Academy High School, and the truancy officer came to the lunchroom during lunch hours, and I was in there playing cards with a friend that I knew from high school, and he told me to come here. I knew the truancy officer that worked at the school. He was like a wrestling coach at one point in time, and everybody knew who he was. So when he told me to come here and like take a walk down 20 to the principal office, it was shocking to me. I didn't like. Why would the police come and get me to go to the principal office? I'm not missing days of school like that. So it was a bit shocking. So when I get there, um, the principal's sitting at her desk, and it's two uniformed officers, and then it was an ununiformed detective sitting in there. And when I stepped in the door, he stepped behind me and like pushed me by my lower back so I can step all the way in and shut the door. And that's when I heard the detective say, "Yeah, we got you now." And they take me to the city jail. So after we go to arraignment, and I start getting partial of the discovery package, is when I find out that this kid, 15-year-old kid, write a description down of four individuals that he alleged to see that night. And in there, it was included that or he described me as being light brown skin with light brown eyes. And
Well, that's not
that was
you.
shocking to me. Yeah, that was mind blowing to me. That was
Hmm.
mind blowing to me. So I'm like, you can clearly see if this is in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is just a case of misidentification. And the prosecutor and the detective, I think they just hung their hat on this kid. I think they just lent this kid all the credence in the world.
Mm.
I think, you know, they were just hell bent.
Wait a minute, Sequan, I want to make sure I heard you right. This is a first. You were
Yes.
arrested while you were in school?
Oh,
You were
yes.
literally in school,
Yes.
and these cops came and pull you out of school and say, "We got you," and you are arrested in
Yes.
school. Are you in your senior year?
Um, yeah,
You're in
my
your
senior year.
senior year.
Yeah. Oh
Wow.
seven, oh eight. I was scheduled to graduate in 2008.
And this is November 10th, 2007, when you are arrested. So they're arresting a minor. How
Yes.
do they notify your family? What is this process like?
And that's the whole thing. Like they didn't notify nobody. I'm a kid, and for you to pull me out of school, you have to notify my mother or some guardian. But them things didn't take place. That never happened.
you are charged with first degree murder, assault with intent to commit murder, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and illegal possession of a firearm. So tell me a little bit of this process as you are finding out these charges against you, how you're going to defend yourself. Obviously, you need a lot of money in this criminal justice system. So tell me a bit about this process.
Well, yeah, I went to court with a court-appointed lawyer. I don't come from family who have finances that would support a defense attorney of certain caliber. So I had to go to trial with a court-appointed lawyer, and but off the bat, I was running down to my attorney like, I was here at this time, here at this place. You can talk to this individual. I remember what we had watched. I remember who was all there. I remember what I wore. I remember the whole day, like it, because that day um, changed my whole life, changed the trajectory of my whole life, and the process was horrible. I don't think I had an adequate attorney, um, or he just did bare minimum work. I had provided him with an alibi witness. He talked to my alibi witness, and she confirmed that I was at her place of residence during said time of the crime, the commission of the crime. But when it was time to put on a defense, a case for me, he told the judge I rest. He didn't call not one single witness for me.
How, I mean, for folks listening, we know how corrupt the system is, but tell us, how are they convicting you? There's no physical evidence, there's no surveillance footage, there's nothing there but just one 15-year-old eyewitness at the time. So, what case? How are they putting this case on you for folks who may not get it?
They didn't have no case. Everything that was, like I say, like example, prime example. I'm glad that you asked. So the DNA, it came back exonerating me and the four individuals, excuse me, the three individuals that I was charged with. We was exonerated. The DNA expert got on the stand and say, in my opinion, these individuals didn't leave, they didn't do this crime because their DNA is not there. And it's other people DNA on the crime, up to three different donors, unknown donors. So when that was presented, the prosecutor would, downplay it like, oh, just because an individual didn't leave his DNA behind doesn't mean that he didn't commit the crime. But it was only the what they collected the DNA off of was only things that the perpetrator, true perpetrator, could have touched to commit this crime. We're talking about shell casings. So, you know, um, everything that was working in my favor, they just tried to discredit, cut off at the knees, so it didn't have no standing ability, no standing ability. And I think that when you going into a trial, they say you have a jury of your peers, and that might be true. That's the Constitution, and it has been long standing for years, years, many years. But for a person to come and sit in a jury box who have no knowledge of the law, who can't really look at evidence and weigh it against an individual, um, that's risky. That is risky in this country because mistakes can be made. And when judges are not given proper or adequate instructions, that's even more riskier. When the prosecutor and its agents is either holding evidence or not putting forth the proper evidence in its proper context, that's even more risky for these type of convictions to result.
You know, it's funny, Sequan, I've covered some cases where the DNA comes back inconclusive and the
Yeah,
prosecution relies on that. Well, it was inconclusive, so they're probably guilty. In your case, the DNA exonerates you and they still convict you.
still,
You know, that's crazy.
yeah,
I've seen prosecutors say, well, if the DNA exonerated them, then we wouldn't have did what we did. But in your case, and for your co-defendants as well, correct? They were
yeah,
also exonerated the DNA.
yes.
That's just wild. That's just. I want people
But
to think about that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
not only that, because I don't want to just the focus on the fact that we were exonerated, and that's a big fact. Though, Clay, that is
Mm.
it's monumental. That is a big
Yeah.
fact. But with that comes the evidence that it's DNA left at the scene of the crime that ties unidentified donors. So
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a big deal, and I'm putting emphasis on it because the prosecutor and his agents, the detectives, had other suspects in their notes or was aware of other suspect who may have done it. I won't even say have done it. I would just say it may have done it, but they didn't get the same type of treatment that we get because they ran our DNA off the bat. And these individuals, they came and brought in and questioned, and they didn't run their DNA. Not even after when the DNA came back where we was exonerated. Nobody was prompt to say, okay, these individuals' DNA is not on there. We have other suspects in our scope. We are aware of that. Let's try to test their DNA just to see, just to cross our T's and dot our I's, just to so we can say without a certainty, this is what it is. Nothing prompt that didn't prompt anyone.
You are convicted February 7th, the day after your birthday, 2009, and you're sentenced to mandatory life without parole. One, did you think you would be convicted? And two, what went through your heart, your soul, your mind when you heard that?
Well, I got a level with you. When I first got arrested and talked to the court appointed attorney, he had, sold it so well to me, like, oh yeah, when your DNA come back and you show that you is not you're gonna be home. So I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling good about it. But as time was starting to unravel things, I sat back and like, well, hold on, you can't see what they doing. Like they building the case while we sit in prison. I mean, excuse me, not prison, but in the county jail. They building the
Hmm.
case, and then when it was time for trial, and I saw all the things I was unraveling, how the judge, in my opinion, and if anybody had followed the trial, I believe they would agree with me. Excuse me as well. How the judge was just so um, volatile towards us. His vernacular that he used towards the defendants and his opinions was just so against us. But he gave much leeway to the prosecutor. Now, it is the prosecutor responsibility and obligation to prove the case. So, with that, some type of leeway is given. But, geez, like, where's the line in that at?
Hmm.
Where's the line?
And when you hear that, when you hear your time, life without parole, uh, what goes through you?
Well, when I got convicted, it was a month after I it was a month after my conviction that my sentence came down. So I got
Hmm.
convicted February
And
17th,
sentence. Hmm.
and yeah, then I got sentenced March 17th. So during that time, I was trying to prepare myself mentally um, because I knew what first degree murder convictions would do, what type of time that come with it. It is mandatory life, and you can try to prepare yourself, Clay, as much as you want. But when you hear them words, it's a different feeling. Your mind. I'm young, so no, I thought I had time to do everything that I wanted to do. Like even if I didn't take advantage of some opportunity that was presented to me, I'm like, I'm young still, so I can get back to that. But when you hear life without parole, then all these numbers on top of life, with that came with the other charges that I was charged with, I'm like, I don't have no opportunity to do nothing now. I can't see my mom. I can't go to prom. Um, I can't get a license. I can't go to a bar. I won't have kids. Like the life that I knew was just it's gone now. And you can try to prepare yourself mentally for it, but there's no way, no way. And I'm young, and Michigan don't have the death penalty, right? But they have it with the life sentences. So it's a slow death. But I'm like, I'm 17. And I already knew at the time the life expectancy of black men was like mid 60s. When you 17 to mid 60s, that's a long way away. That's a long way away. And I'm just thinking like I gotta spend the rest of my time alive in prison for something I didn't do. And no matter how loud or vocal I was about that, it just seemed like it wasn't being heard. It was just falling on deaf ears.
Mm, wow. And again, you're arrested at high school. That is
Yeah,
arrested in high school. That is a first.
it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I can
It was during
imagine.
lunch hours. So when they walked me out of the principal office, they walked me like I guess they got the term for the walk of shame. You
Yeah.
know, I see all the kids who was attending lunch at that hour looking in the windows, kids in classroom, and you got to think like this was my last time seeing individuals for 15 years. I didn't see
Mm,
nobody from high school for the 15 years. So now when I'm bumping into people, they like, dude, where have you been? Like, or like, you was where? This I'm thinking you just moved or dropped out of school or did something like I didn't even know. And that was mind blowing to me. And the have to relive some moments. It get very touchy at times. I do a lot better now than I have ever done, but it's still a raw emotional side that a person still got to try to heal from, still got to try to cope with. I almost
mm,
spent. I was 15 years. Put it in perspective for you. I was 17 years of age, and I spent 15 years in prison.
mm.
That's half of my life.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, Sequan, because we say these years, 15 years. I've interviewed folks who've been behind bars wrongfully 40 years. I mean, that's the time, the time, the time. When you think of prison, you think violence. It's got to be scary for a young man to go behind bars. How are you surviving? How are you getting by day behind bars?
When I first, they got this place called quarantine. That's where you go from a transitional um, place that you go to from county jail. You go to quarantine to get vaxxed and get checked out medically and things of that stuff before you get shipped off to like a destination prison where you would be staying there for quite some time. But I made it up in my mind, Clay, after I got sentenced, and I went through them emotions, and I'm like, I'm just gonna hit the law library. They had a law library. I'm gonna keep my head down, stay out of trouble, and do whatever I can do to try to learn the ins and out of law to give me the best opportunity to come home. Because, like I said, we didn't have no money for a lawyer. Going to trial with a paid lawyer is expensive, but what's even more expensive than that is an appeal lawyer. So I knew that was out of the question. And my sister, she did everything she could to try to get me an appeal lawyer who will adequately represent me. And it just that was a failed attempt. It was a failure. So, I got there. I saw individuals who was in the law library, and I didn't even understand what I was reading. Like I'm 17. I'm so you talking about reading law books and the terminology and again the vernacular that is used in the criminal justice system. I'm lost when prison is a place where you got to pay for everything. If you want to know something, you got to pay for it. If you want somebody to do something for you, you got to pay for it. So I started from ground zero. I got a dictionary. I started reading the dictionary before I even finished cracking open the book. When I realized I couldn't grasp the understanding of what was going on, I just started with the dictionary. And I probably did that for, I probably read the dictionary probably maybe a year and a half. And then I got into the law books. I started to learn how to shepherdize. I started to learn how to make sure the cases were standing still. It was good law. But I just tried not to get caught up in the world of prison, the politics of prison. I wanted to stay focused. I knew I had to be focused and not have no distractions in my life at that time to try to figure this thing out. And you know, I did.
Hmm. So explain to the audience how you are eventually exonerated. You were just exonerated in December. You were released in
Yes,
September, and you were just
yes.
exonerated in December. So you've only been out for a few months. How were you eventually exonerated?
So when the Michigan Supreme Court came down with their ruling back in July of 22, um, on it was we got the reversal on excuse me, on the Brady violation, the withholding of evidence. So when the Michigan Supreme Court, Michigan High Court come down with their ruling and reversing, I'm like, yeah, this is great. Fast forward, and that was September 20th, 2022. Fast forward into November 28th, the day after or 2 days after Thanksgiving, we have a court appearance conference, court appearance, and we attended, and the prosecutor asked for more time. They want to do a little bit more due diligence. They want to do a little bit more testing of evidence. Um, so Christmas is in December, so the judge granted it to the extension of time to January 23rd, and for somebody who done did 15 years, it 2 months, almost 2 months away, essentially, that's a long time. It's a long time. I was in class. I'm trying to get life back on order. I'm down at Michigan Works, taking this class so I can get this financial help from the state to pay for my CDLs. Um, School, sitting in class, and my attorney Kimberly Thompson from the University of Michigan, she usually would send a text or she would email, but this time she called, and when I saw the number come up on my phone, I knew what it was. Like I knew it was great news. I knew it was great news, and she said that they're going to be dropping the charges. They're not going to pursue the charges.
So your birthday is February 17th. It'll be your first birthday as a free man. What do you have planned?
February 16th, February
I'm sorry,
17th. It's
16th. Forgive me.
I say it's going to be a bittersweet thing, like it has always been. But the day after that, the wrongful conviction came down.
Yeah.
So I've been over the last 15 years. I don't want to celebrate that because it's just gonna put me in remembrance of what came the day after.
Mm.
So I really don't. People been asking what you want to do for your birthday. This your first birthday, man. You got to turn up, get turned up, this and that. But I'm like, I don't know what I want to do because I don't know the feelings. I'm going to feel good about being home, but on the flip side of that, I don't know how I'm going to feel like with everything surrounding me. I just don't know. I really don't know. You 4 months, 4.5 months don't wash away the last 15 years.